Welcome to another lesson. Now we are going to go into loops. Yeah, this is another section of this course that is very important, right? So, what do we refer to when we talk about loops? A loop simply refers to a set of instructions that must be repeated. Okay, it's a set of instructions. A loop is a program containing a set of instructions to be executed repeatedly by the compiler, right? So any portion of our code that is executed repeatedly for a specific number of times is a loop. Okay, so it says here, at times certain instructions require repeated execution. Loops are an ideal way to do the same. Okay, so and like I said, the loop represents a set of instructions that must be repeated. In a loop's context, a repetition is termed as an iteration. Okay, it says a repetition is termed as an iteration. Okay, and I hope you know what this word means, iteration, right? So let's just look it up. Is the repetition of a process or utterance. So an iteration simply refers to a repetition. No, that's all. Okay, so we are going with this definition. It is the repetition of a process. That's just what it means. All right. So here I have some notes. But before we go into these notes, let's look at this. So it says the following figure illustrates the classification of loops. Okay, so loops are broadly divided into three classes. Okay, definite and indefinite. Under the definite, we have the for loop, and under the indefinite, we have the while loop and the do while loop. Okay, so let's start the discussion from the definite loops. A definite loop is a loop whose number of iterations are definite or fixed. All right, so when you have a loop that has a fixed number of iterations, a predefined number of iterations, that is a definite loop. Okay, and first we look at the for loop and then the for in loop. Okay, under the definite loop we look at the for loop and the for in loop. So the for loop is an implementation of a definite loop. The for loop executes the code block for a specified number of times. It can be used to iterate over a fixed set of values such as an array. Okay, so let's just open it, and here we have a syntax. All right, we have a syntax here, the for loop, and this is what it looks like. You first have this keyword for, all right, and then inside you open a bracket, a parenthesis, and then inside you first define an initial count value. All right, an initial count value, and then define a termination condition, and then you define a step. Okay, and then you open this curly brackets, and inside of it you write your statements, okay, which is the code, the operation that you want to be carried out for the specified number of times. all right, which is actually defined by this termination condition. So let's look at this to see if we have any examples. All right, let me give you my own example. I'm going to create a new file. Now, because our loop is always going to carry out, an operation. All right, we are going to have to write it in the main function. Okay, we cannot write it outside of the main function. We only do things like variable declaration outside the main function, but we want to carry out operations, okay, like we did in conditional statements and decision making, our if statements, our switch case, and so on, right? When we want to carry out operations like that, we have to write them in the main function. So this is actually what our if condition looks like. Okay, so first we have this keyword for, and then you have these three values: this initial count value, a termination condition, and a step, and then you have your statements inside this curly bracket. So let's see what it looks like. I'm going to create a for loop, and then I'm going to create my initial count value. So I'm going to call this count. All right, this is just this is a variable. This is a variable that is going to help determine how many times my loop will run. Let's just proceed. And then in termination condition, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to create a loop, okay, a loop that is going to count numbers from 1 to 100. All right, so I want to write a program. I want to write a program that will just print numbers from 1 to 100. Okay, now it's very easy using this for loop. In fact, using loops in general. All right, so this is just one type of loop, the for loop, and I mentioned earlier that it is a definite loop. Okay, because now I can determine how many times I want this loop to run. Okay, and that number of times is actually 100 because I want to count from 1 to 100. All right, so this is where my counting will start. My counting will start from 1. All right, so just try and follow me. My counting will start from 1. And then next thing I'm supposed to provide is my termination condition. So when do I want this loop to terminate? When do I want it to stop? When I want it to stop is when count is greater than or equal to. In fact, when count is equal to 10. No. Okay, I want it to run for as long as count is less than or equal to 100. All right, so my loop is going to run until this condition. For as long as this condition is true, my loop is going to keep running. Okay, but once it defaults to false, like once this is false, my loop will stop. Okay, so as this loop is running, what do I want to keep doing? I want to keep increasing count. All right, so this is it. I want to write a program that is going to count numbers from 1 to 100. All right, so I've initialized a variable named count. All right, so this is just is going to represent where do I want my counting to start. That is what this is. All right, so I'm going to be working with this variable. This is what I'm going to be printing and increasing. Okay, I'm going to be printing it and increasing. Now a loop, the name of this is a loop. All right, the name of this piece of code is a loop. Okay, so it's going to run again and again. You know what a loop looks like, right? It's going to run again and again. So the compiler will come here. Let me print it first. Let me print count. Now this is, I'm writing my statement. All right, my statement is what I want my loop to perform, to execute. Yeah, and in this case what I want to do is I just want to print count as it is increasing. All right, so my compiler is going to execute this piece of code. All right, and remember it's going to just come into this main function and execute whatever it sees line by line. All right, so as it comes, it notices that this is actually a loop. All right, so it runs it executes this loop the first time. Now it sees this count to be 1. All right, count is 1, the value of count is 1, so it prints it. No, it looks at this first and then observes this condition next. So it's going to be printing count as long as this condition is true. All right, and right now count is just 1. Okay, so it is true, 1 is less than 100, less than or equal to 100, so it's going to print count and then increment it, and then it's going to come back again. Now after it has incremented count, the new value of count is going to be 2. All right, the new value of count is now 2. So when it runs it again, it's going to repeat this process with count at 2, and of course 2 is less than or equal to 100. Okay, so it will just print 2 again and then increment, so that the next time it runs, count is 3, and it's going to continue this until count is less than or equal to 100. Okay, let me just use less than 100. All right, so it's going to run from 1 to 99. Now 99 is less than 100, right? So after it's printed 99 and increased, all right, and incremented, the next time it came to execute this loop, it saw that because it has incremented, during the last iteration. All right, and when it incremented, 99 became 100. So when it came back to execute this code again, it's discovered that this condition is now false. All right, now 100 is not less than 100. 100 is equal to 100. All right, so that is why it did not print 100 here. You get it? So what I can do is I can change this condition to say less than or equal to 100, so that the next time after 99 it can print 100, because of course 100 is equal to 100. Okay, so I now have succeeded in writing a program, a for loop, to print numbers from 1 to 100. All right, so this is just one type of loop, the for loop, and there are a couple different things I can do with this loop. All right, and one of them is, assuming I have a string string animal, and I initialize this to hippopotamus. All right, so I can say animal dot length. That's my count. No. How many letters are here? Okay, let me try that. Animals dot length less than or equal to animal dot length. Okay, and then I'm just experimenting, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to print out each letter one by one. Range error. Okay, so not inclusive. Okay, so let me just say 0. Yeah. Still getting, I had it printed, but I'm still getting this range error. Count 0. Okay. -1 to match with the index number of each of the last item. Alright, of the last character, sorry. Yeah, so I have this. Okay, so I got that error because animal dot length. Now I'm printing each character in this string. I'm printing each character in this string according to their index, according to its index, like the index of each character. All right, and the index here is let me print it. Animal dot length. What is animal dot length? It's 12. All right, so this string has 12 characters. All right, so if I do dot length, it just counts 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 characters total in this particular string hippopotamus. But index numbers do not start at 1, they start at 0. Right, they start at 0, so it's actually 0 to 11. All right, that is why I had to reduce this count by 1. So this condition, count is less than animal dot length reduced by 1. All right, because index numbers range from 0 to 11. All right, so I really hope you understand. Okay, so this is just one of the things that we can do with one of the things that we can do with for loop. The first one is I printed numbers from 1 to 100. All right, for int. Let me just use I to initialize my integer, and then I less than or equal to 100. Okay, now I'm just using I instead of count. All right, you can use any variable name you want. You can even use age. All right, so you're increasing the age of someone from when the person is 1 years old to 100 years old. Okay, but I chose to use I, and then increment. And then you're printing. All right, so that's what it is. I'm just going to leave this here for a while for reference. Okay, now we have looked at one type of loop. All right, we are going to look at some other types. Let me clean this off. Now in this example, you can study it yourself. All right, they declare the variable 5 and then another one of 1. Okay, factorial. Just you can go through this example, right? But this is not different from what I've already done. Okay, you can look up the meaning of factorial. This is a mathematical term. They are just calculating the factorial of numbers from 1 to 5, I believe. Okay, so you can look it up. This is a mathematical term. All right. Let's look at the for-in loop. So the for-in loop is used to loop through an object's properties. Now we already did that using the for each, right? When we looped through the objects of this string. When we look through the properties, the characters of this string. All right, so I can also do the same thing using for-in loop. All right, for-in loop is actually best suited for that. So it says the for-in loop is used to loop through an object's properties. Okay, so following the syntax of for-in loop, this is what it looks like. So for variable name in object, okay, and then you write your statements or block to execute. So this is just I will push this down and I'll copy this, I'll place here. So this is what it looks like. Let's say I have a list, or let me have another string, or maybe the same string. All right, animal hippopotamus. So this is what a for-in loop is like. I will have my for keyword as usual, and then I will say for string letter in animal. Okay, so I can only perform this on an iterable. So let me just transform this into a list. So a list, or I can even use a map, but let me use a list. My list. Okay, animals. This is a list of animals. All right, so hippopotamus, dog, cat. that. All right, so for string animal in animals, now I'm using string here, string data type, because everything here is a string. All right, every item here is a string. So for string animal in animals, animal. All right, so what I did here is actually very simple. I declared a variable, okay, named animal, and then I used this in. I used this in keyword to refer to this list animals. All right, so what this means, what this particular expression means, is that I am using this variable animal to refer to every animal in this list right here. Okay, so I can actually use any name I want. I can use x. All right, any variable name I want to refer to each animal here. So if I print, if I hit run, sorry, what's going on? I needed to comment this out. So if I hit run, you see the name of each animals here. All right, so this for in is basically used to iterate through iterables, whether lists, whether sets or maps. All right, so I can perform something like dot to uppercase, in other words, to print all the animals in uppercase. Right, I'm converting them to uppercase here and printing all the animal strings in animals, and you can see the results. Okay, so this is what this is all about for loop and the for in loop. Okay, so these are the two definite loops we have. Definite because in for loop we defined a definite number of times we want our loop to execute. All right, definite number of times. In this case it is 100. We don't want it to go beyond 100. All right, in this case we don't want it to go beyond the length of our string animal -1. All right, and then in this case we don't want it to go beyond the length of this list, which is animals. All right, so this loop is just going to iterate. The number of times this loop is going to execute is dependent on the length of animals, on how many items I have in animals. All right, if I added more animals, okay, and let me print a number and increment it. Illegal assignment, so a non-assignable. What do I do? Okay, I'll just define a variable outside. Int a 1. Okay, initialized to 1, and then yeah. So what this is just doing, what this print statement is simply doing is just incrementing this number each time that this loop runs. I think I should initialize this in here. Yeah, so each time that this loop runs, all right, this number will increase, letting us know how many times our loop runs, our loop executed. All right, so I'll hit run, Let me bring this here. Okay. Let me bring it out. But why isn't it? Let me do a simple. All right. Okay. Let's see why. Alright, so I was supposed to declare this outside. Yeah. So should have started with 0. Okay. So which means our loop executed 5 times. Alright, which is the number of items we have in animals. Alright, so this loop is going to execute based on the length of whatever iterable we are using for it. Alright, so thank you very much, and in the next class we will look at the other type of loops. Alright, right now we have we have looked at definite loops. Alright, we'll be looking at indefinite loops next. Thank you.